This is Cass Burton. It is my audio journal of my trip to Myanmar. It is January 20th, 2015. These are the notes from my meeting with Aung San Suu Kyi, also known as the Lady, when we visited together for 15 minutes at the Luta. She asked me as soon as we sat down, how do we achieve democracy? It's a tough question, but my response after some thinking was, well, through compromise. And she said, that's exactly right, that there must be some kind of middle ground, something between solely economic development and just raw activism, that is just protesting for the sake of protesting. We continued the conversation, and I spoke about transparency and gave an example from a recent story in Myanmar where the regulator of food and beverages and drugs in this country had done a study of drinking water, and they found that 44% of the drinking water that's represented as purified is in fact not. It's bacteria-ridden. And while she agreed, she said that the next most important thing to achieve democracy was that people must have a basic understanding of democratic principles, that education is key, that sufficient educational upbringing will promote this middle-class mindset, which is essentially there's not too much to lose, but enough to fight for it. And we discussed briefly the difference between what the middle class would look like in Myanmar and the United States. At the end of our conversation, we talked a bit about how can there be a focus on democratic progress instead of retribution. Obviously, there's a lot of people who are very angry about being wrongly jailed, in some cases for decades. And in doing that, we talked a little bit about the Buddhist tradition, which says we must practice loving kindness. And she said, not everybody is a good Buddhist. And I mentioned the idea about Christianity saying that we must practice forgiveness. But of course, there are some Christians who would say an eye for an eye. She ended by saying we just must maintain our focus on this goal for basic rights, like electing our leaders, and economic development, that is, improving the standard of living. Altogether, I will say it was a very, very, very inspiring chat, and I feel very grateful for having had the time to meet the Lady.